Welcome to The Economy Magazine. I'm Ayman Siksak with today's top financial stories from around the world. Coming up today, Croatia elects its first female president as unemployment rates in the country soar to nearly 20%. And the real estate sector rediscovers Mariachi Plaza in Los Angeles, ushering in uncertainty for local artists. But first, the headlines. Hundreds of French Jews attended a Jewish agency fair under tight security in Paris to obtain information regarding immigration to Israel. The fair had been planned in advance of the past week's tragic events. The recent terror attacks in France have reawakened tensions over the future of the biggest Jewish community in Europe, some 500,000 French Jews. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed French Jews in the Paris Grand Synagogue at the end of a mass rally honoring 17 victims of Islamist militant attacks.
Any Jewish man or a woman who wishes to come and immigrate to Israel will be greeted with open arms and all of our warmth.
Global oil prices fell by more than $1 a barrel on Monday as Goldman Sachs lowered its short-term forecasts, while refineries in Ohio and Pennsylvania were hit by fires over the weekend, curtailing demand for crude in the United States. Both Brent and U.S. crude are their lowest point since April 2009 and have fallen for 7 straight weeks. Analysts at Goldman Sachs cut their average forecast for Brent in 2015 to $50.40 a barrel from $83.75. As for crude, the forecast was cut to $47.15 a barrel from $73.75. Goldman Sachs said prices would need to stay near $40 for most of the first half of 2015 before it would hold up shale oil investments. And in more news on oil, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro met Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Salman in Riyadh on Sunday as part of a diplomatic tour of OPEC members to discuss falling oil prices, which have hit the South American nation's economy hard. The Saudi delegation included Oil Minister Ali Al-Naimi and several top princes, including Deputy Crown Prince Mukran, Intelligence Chief Prince Khalid bin Bandar, and 3 sons of King Abdullah. But Maduro and his delegation did not comment on the talks. On Saturday, Iran vowed to help Venezuela stem the fall in oil prices. Maduro's next stop will be in Qatar, followed by a visit to Algeria. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi promised to pursue predictable policies and ensure stable taxes in a bid to address the concerns of foreign investors in Asia's third largest economy. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry led a roll call of leaders, including UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and World Bank head Jim Yong Kim, with Modi's hometown of Gandhinagar as the vibrant Gujarat Business Summit. President Barack Obama visits India later this month. But 8 months into Modi's rule, his failure to lift the economy from its longest growth slowdown in a generation has raised questions about how much substance there is behind his promise of red carpet, not red tape.
Recession is often seen just in the context of business and industry. Have we ever thought of recession as being the result of low per capita income in countries where a majority of the global population lives?
Now, a second round of voting concluded in Croatia over the weekend, with opposition challenger Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic becoming the first female president of the country. Overhauling the economy will be the #1 challenge for the 4th president of the brand new member of the European Union. Daniel Roth has more.
Croatian voters cast their ballots over the weekend to decide on the next president of the country in a second round between incumbent Social Democrat Ivo Josipovic and conservative Kolinda Grabar-Kitarovic. The latter took the election, becoming Croatia's 4th president and the first woman to hold the seat.
Good evening on this magnificent night. We have won a victory for our patriotic coalition. and also for our dear and beloved homeland.
Front and center in the decision has been the need to overhaul the economy of the brand new and economically weakest member of the European Union.
The Croatian economy has been in a deep recession for the past 6 years, and it's entering the 7th year. This recession is not just a consequence of the great global crisis of 2008, which also swept Croatia. It's especially a structural crisis. The problems are structural in nature, and the government is not addressing them. We have said continually that we need reform in the public sector.
Unemployment is near 20% and at 50% for those under 25, and growth could sit at 0.5% this year. Despite the fact that presidential powers are limited, the race has been bitter, illustrating the urgency of the situation, and both candidates put the economy at the front of the race.
Croatia is going through a deep economic and social crisis. We need to face the truth.
It's true that we are in a crisis, and we know why we are in this crisis. It's because of the criminal privatization, the privilege of Croatia over many years. And in the end, you have been witness to that. You were part of the government that pillaged Croatia.
The final result may have come as a surprise to the incumbent and is indicative of a growing divide over the direction of the country. The Conservatives say that these last few years have failed to bring Croatia up to the efficient and business-friendly level they say it ought to be at. The Social Democrats had aimed to push constitutional changes to give the president more powers and to decentralize the economy, according to the AFP report. Now, with the results in, it is clear that Croatia is going in a new, perhaps more conservative direction.
And now we are joined by Arya Chertov from stock analyst ranking company TipRanks for a discussion of what lies ahead in the markets this coming year. So Arya, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, we've discussed a little bit of Goldman Sachs today, and looking ahead into 2015 now, it may be hard to estimate what's going to happen with the major banks, but let's look back at what we've seen in 2014 and maybe a few years back, some of the highlights that we need to pay attention to.
Okay, well, first of all, the four big banks are reporting earnings this week, namely JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo. So the first three, actually, unlike Wells Fargo, over the last 5 years underperformed the market and have been really struggling to recover from the financial crisis in 2008. So.
And in JP Morgan Chase's case, does the cyber attack that happened recently have any influence?
Definitely. I mean, that compromised 83 million accounts. That's about 2/3 of all households in the U.S. They were affected by that. Also, back in 2012, they suffered a multi-billion-dollar trading loss, which also was difficult for them. This past year, though, in 2014, they did pretty well as far as revenues go. They raked in $6.3 billion, which is roughly 7% of the market share. But what's interesting now is that Goldman Sachs actually issued an analysis saying that they're better off splitting up. JP Morgan has a very complex structure. They have 5 subsidiary banks in the U.S., and there are a lot of regulatory fines that come with being so large. So
lots of challenges for JP Morgan Chase. What about Bank of America?
So Bank of America had a pretty strong 2014 in terms of stock price appreciation. Their shares gained about 14%. They actually also had an interesting year in terms of fines and legal issues. They were the subject of a record-breaking $17 billion lawsuit, which they had to pay to the Department of Justice. Overall, though, they've been doing pretty well navigating the financial crisis, and they're also doing well in cutting costs. So things might look good for them in 2015.
So legal issues for both these banks. What about Citigroup? Are they doing any better?
Citigroup, well, they're not doing that much worse as far as legal issue goes. They've had their fair share. They've had to pay also several $billion in fines. But what's interesting there is that recently there's been a lot of hype about their bonus cuts for some of their traders and salespeople. The thing is, the bonus cut is only about 5 to 10% of the 2013 bonuses, which isn't that uncommon to happen. And J.P. Morgan also, they recently had a 15% cut for some of their employees. Probably the reason that it's such big news is that they were expecting to keep it the same as 2013, and only really in the last couple of weeks they realized that they had to make this cut. So they've all had some issues, but they're all doing their best to make 2015 a little better.
Certainly a lot to look forward to this year. Arya
Definitely.
Chertov, thank you very much for this.
Thank you for having me.
We move now to the United States, where Mariachi Plaza has become a sought-after commodity for the Los Angeles real estate sector. But the new interest also means new challenges for local musicians. Here's more on that story.
Mariachi Plaza, Los Angeles. For the last 50 years, this has been where Mexican musicians gather to find work for the night. Contract ready to be signed, Rodrigo is giving out his business card to potential clients who are driving by. You can hire him and his 4 colleagues for $350 an hour.
The majority of people who come here to hear mariachis are Latinos. Americans almost never come here. They prefer to look on the internet. They type Mariachi Plaza into their search engine.
Mariachi Plaza is also the name of the subway station that was built here a few years ago. The newfound accessibility is threatening the very same people who gave the plaza its name. The largely poor and Latino neighborhood has drawn the interest of real estate developers. Plan to build a shopping mall have many of the musicians worried they might be forced out of the neighborhood.
We haven't been told that we need to leave, but we also haven't been told if we should stay, so we're waiting. We're not against urban development in this neighborhood. It's good that things are looking up. But the big question is if the hundreds of mariachis that work on this plaza will be allowed to stay.
Tony has been a mariachi since his childhood. He finds all of his clients out here on the plaza. Without a public place to showcase his talents, he's worried he might not be able to find work at all.
There's a lot of us depending on the music to feed our families. We're not hurting anybody. We're here to bring people joy.
As long as he can stay, Tony will keep on playing. According to the Mariachi Union, the livelihoods of up to 5,000 Los Angeles families depend on the work of the musicians on the plaza.
And let's continue on that high note. For more stories from the global economic press, let's go to Media Watch with Daniel Roth. Daniel, thank you for joining me again.
Thanks for having me.
We were discussing France earlier in the show today.
Absolutely. Everyone, it's all over the place right now, of course.
So, increased security in France. What does that mean economically? What are the costs of sustaining something so...
It's big. It's significant. Business Insider reports that almost 5,000 security personnel are being deployed to various Jewish institutions around the country. The report just before we came on the air said that there's 10,000 soldiers and 8,000 police in total. That's 18,000 people. You're talking about millions of dollars over the course of a month of extra security. So in this case, all of that together is somewhere around $25 million of added security costs that the government has to take on. It's kind of one of these hidden costs, and it's just one of the many hidden financial costs. Of course, the cost to life is unquantifiable, but when you're looking at financial costs, there's millions of dollars coming out of different areas. And in the case of just added security on the ground, you're talking about $25 million. You're talking about like a big amount.
And we're talking about 1 month specifically because this can't be substantiated for too long?
Well, no, it's $25 million a month, so over the course of the year, you multiply that by 12, who knows? That's the big question. One of the trends going on right now is that governments are putting much more money into security and slowly, albeit less in France, privatizing other areas of government responsibility, things like healthcare, things like social security, and more public spending is finding its way into security. And this is indicative of that trend. Again, that's less so in France thus far, but we may see that marked change happen here now.
And speaking of changes we might see, what was the market reaction so far to these attacks?
Very interesting. There was basically no market reaction. People spoke about this as a terrorist attack, but the markets reacted to this as they might to a criminal act. It was very minimal reaction.
Well, we hope for the best for France, of course, economically
Absolutely.
and otherwise. Daniel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it for our Economy Magazine for today. I'm Ayman Siksak. Thank you for being with us. Be sure to visit our page on i24news.tv and join us again tomorrow for more on the economy.